On April 5th, the Texas Rangers allowed 35,000 fans into their stadium to watch a baseball game. They were able to do this because the state of Texas, following Florida's lead, had reopened, declaring that they were 100% done with COVID-19. Asked about this, President Joe Biden expressed concern. They should listen to Dr. Fauci, the scientists and the experts, but I think it's not responsible. As time went on, however, something funny happened. Reality did not match up with what Dr. Fauci, the scientists, and the experts predicted. COVID cases fell in states that opened up, such as Texas and Florida. On the other hand, states that followed the approved experts' lockdown advice saw their cases rise. When Dr. Fauci was confronted with this information, this was his response.
Mentioned Texas and that full ballpark in Arlington yesterday. There was a lot of concern last month when Texas effectively opened up, dropped all those restrictions and said it's back to life. And if you go to Texas, as you know, it looks like 2019. The restaurants and the bars are full and open. The ballparks are full. And yet we've seen cases and hospitalizations since then continue to tick downward. So what do you make of that as all of us look around and sort of try to consider how safe it is to get back to normal life?
Yeah, it can be confusing because you may see a lag and a delay because often you have to wait a few weeks before you see the effect of what you're doing right now. There are a lot of things that go into that. I mean, when you say that they've had a lot of activity on the outside, like ball games, I'm not really quite sure. It could be they're doing things outdoors. It's very difficult to just one-on-one compare that.
Cognitive dissonance? Thy name is Dr. Fauci. In this clip, Fauci obviously had no answer as to why he was so wrong about Texas and Florida. Why couldn't he just admit it? The answer to this question goes a long way to explaining the Western world's overreaction to the COVID-19 pandemic and provides possible paths to restoring some semblance of freedom. And what is the answer? The answer is that human beings are not rational, and we do not make rational decisions. This includes scientists like Dr. Fauci. Greetings everyone, it's Dave here. For those who don't know me, I'm a libertarian and science fiction author. Currently, I'm working on a short story called The Architects of Reality, which deals with how ruling elites craft narratives to control populations. If this interests you, click on the link below to learn more, as I'll be giving this story away for free for a limited time when it's done, as well as other goodies. With that out of the way, let's explore just how irrational humans are, including experts like Dr. Fauci, and how it relates to COVID-19. Humans think they are rational, and they think they understand their reality, but they are wrong on both counts. Scott Adams, Wayne Bigley. The key thing to remember is that all evolutionary adaptations take hold in order to aid procreation, not to be rational or understand reality. Man's ability to reason is only a very recent adaptation, and it is extremely weak. For millions of years, man has thrived without it, instead relying on the automatic, visceral, and emotional parts which dominate our brain. Author Jonathan Haidt, in his book The Righteous Mind, envisions this relationship as one between an automatic, visceral, and emotional elephant being ridden by a small, rational rider. The rider likes to pretend that he is leading the elephant, but in reality, it is the elephant that decides which way to go. The only thing the rider can do is conjure up rational reasons for the elephant's actions after the fact in order to maintain the illusion that he is leading the elephant. One of the principles the elephant has learned by instinct is the importance of being consistent. Survival in the wild depends on getting along with the other elephants in your herd. If you are seen as inconsistent or unreliable, you may be banished. In Robert Cialdini's The Psychology of Influence, he presents the following examples of this phenomena in human elephants. The first involved the psychology of racetrack betting. Psychologists have observed that before making a bet, a gambler is very unsure of which horse to bet on. However, once a bet is made, their confidence in their pick grows. Why is this? Initially, their elephant is unsure of which way to go. Eventually, though, it makes a decision which could be based on anything, the color of the horse, a lucky number, you name it. Once the elephant has made the decision and starts to lumber in one direction, the rider starts to make up reasons for why his elephant made the right choice. The elephant decides and the rider justifies. The next example is known as the beach thief test. In the first scenario, a research assistant would place a blanket 5 feet away from the subject along with a radio. He would then leave, and later, what appears to be a thief would approach and try to steal the radio. In this situation, only 4 of the 20 subjects would try and stop him. In the second scenario, before the assistant left, he would ask the subject to watch his things. This time, when the thief approached, the subject would try and stop him 19 out of 20 times. The reason for this change is that in the second scenario, the subject had agreed to look after the researcher's stuff. In order to remain consistent with this pledge, which is very important to the elephant, the rider is compelled to act. In Dr. Fauci's case, he has put his professional reputation behind the idea that lockdowns work and are the best policy. For him to admit that he may be wrong, or worse, that he doesn't know, is inconsistent with his elephant's previous commitment. Hence his inability to absorb this new information and the cognitive dissonance he displayed. The second reason for the irrationality that Dr. Fauci demonstrated is due to the phenomenon of social proof. More often than not, elephants take their cues from other elephants. One example of this in human elephants, again from the psychology of influence, is the use of television laugh tracks. When we watch something, is it funny? If our mental elephant senses that other elephants think a scene is funny, we are more likely to laugh. This is despite the fact that our rational rider knows the laugh track is fake. We all laugh, or at least smile, and our rider will justify it later, even though it knows better. Another, more disturbing example is how people will react to a woman in distress. In this experiment, a subject was placed in a waiting room along with a few research students. As they were all filling in a form, a sound of a woman in clear distress could be heard behind a closed door. If the research students ignored the sounds, the subject was most likely to ignore it too. Only seeing the research students react to the sounds will compel the subject's elephant to act. In Dr. Fauci's case, most of the political and medical establishment have fallen in line with a belief in the effectiveness of lockdowns. Breaking with this stampede, which he himself helped start, would require a tremendous amount of courage and independent thinking. Breaking with this social proof is something that Dr. Fauci's elephant is not able to do. The final explanation for Dr. Fauci's cognitive dissonance is that our elephants like to be liked. Once again, when living in a herd or a tribe, being liked is a powerful survival mechanism and therefore highly desirable. In the psychology of influence, Cialdini points to the example of 12-time car salesman of the year Joe Girard. His secret? Every month, no matter what, he would send out a card to his past customers celebrating any relevant holiday or special occasion, from Christmas to St. Patrick's Day. The key factor, though, is how he signed them. Every card said, "I like you, Joe Girard." In this case, simply reminding his customers that he liked them was enough to ensure the repeat customers that would make him a best-selling car salesman. Cialdini points out that every effective salesman uses similar tactics. One of the most common ways is to find points of shared interest. We tend to like people who are like us, so if a salesman notices you have golf clubs in your car, the wily salesman will point out that he or she enjoys golf too, whether they do or not. Elephants like being liked. Now consider the Fauci elephant. In his role of defender against COVID-19, he will be seen as saving lives. Who isn't going to like an elephant that protects them? But if he has to admit that he doesn't really know, and that the lockdowns of the past year may have been a giant blunder, that will all go away. This is why most politicians, and in his current role Fauci is definitely a politician, are much more likely to dispense comforting lies over harsh truths, and double and triple down on failed policy. From where I sit, Fauci's elephant has chosen one direction and, for all the reasons above, is unwilling to change, no matter the evidence. Unfortunately, the elephants that make up most of the commanding heights of our medical and political class seem to be following him in an irrational stampede, which is why the encouraging results in states like Texas and Florida are ignored. Figuring out ways to turn this around and to appeal to these elephants is what I hope to look at in future videos. Do you have any ideas? Feel free to share them below, and I'll talk to you next time.